Cowtown Compound with facts, not fiction. you know, I want to know why the left is so upset about the education reform bill, the Learns bill. I want to know why so many teachers are upset and superintendents and school board members are upset. I just can't figure it out because with what's in the bill, they should all be excited about it. I mean, there's some really great stuff in there, yet they're running around like little 5-year-old girls screaming and throwing little tantrums. Now, I'm sure that's going to be offensive to somebody, what I just said, but you know what? Good. That just made my day. There's a lot in this bill. But I want to start with the big one that everybody's talking about, everybody wants to know about, and that's the Arkansas Educational Freedom Account Program. If you think this is going to cause a mass exodus from public schools to private schools, that's just not the case. That's just not the case. There's no incentive for established private schools to participate in this, and I'm going to explain why. Homeschool, yes. Private schools, no. I want to start by reading some pretty boring language that's in the bill, but it's so important to the discussion to understand this. So stay with me for just a couple minutes here, all right? We're going to go with some definitions. Of course, it's going to be known as the Arkansas Children's Educational Freedom Account Program. Account means an account that is comprised of funds deposited on behalf of a participating student to pay for qualifying educational expenses. Participating school means a private elementary or private secondary school. Offers enrollment students of the full academic curriculum and full academic year experience. Receives payments from Arkansas Children's Educational Freedom Account Program, accounts to provide goods and services that are covered as qualifying expenses under this subchapter. Qualifying expenses means tuition, fees, the cost of testing under this, the cost of required school uniforms, expenses determined by a participating school to be necessary for the education of participating student and required to be paid by a participating student who is enrolled in the participating school for supplies, equipment, access to technology, service provided, or at the participating school. This will expand in the 24-25 school year to instructional materials required for either person virtual instruction, instructional or tutoring service, curriculum, supplemental material supplies, fees for courses associated with examinations, college credit, any examination related to post-secondary educational institution admissions, courses and associated exams for career training, exams required to obtain industry-based credentials, services provided by a licensed accredited practitioner, fees for account management by participating service providers. This shall not, I want to point this out, this shall not go for costs associated with transportation to and from participating provider or participating school. I told you this was very boring reading. It's what happens when you get lawyers to write stuff. So just stay with me a little bit more. The State Board of Education is going to basically be doing this as far as the rules. The State Board of Education, which shall be subject to rules adopted by the State Board of Education, process for determining the eligibility of students, service providers, including the awarding of accounts to eligible students. The division shall establish a process for conducting an audit of entity receiving funds under this subsection, including participating service provider, a participating school, and at least one time each year, the division will conduct random audits to participating service provider and participating schools. It's boring, I told you, just a little bit more. Requirement for surety bond for participating service provider that receives more than $100,000 in account funds. Required compliance with all state procurement laws and procedures. That one's important, as all of them are. Account funds, excuse me, what will be deposited in these accounts is an amount equal to 90% of the prior year's statewide foundation funding allotted per student under Arkansas Code 6/2023-05. That is boring, but it's very important. I'll explain why later. Withholding up to 5% of funds allocated for each account annually for the administration of the program. The department shall develop a system for parents to direct account funds to participating schools and participating services providers by electronic funds transfer, automated clearinghouse transfer, debit card, or another system. Almost done. Account funds shall not constitute taxable income for the parent or participating student. To be eligible to participate in the Arkansas Children's Education Freedom Account Program, a private school shall meet accreditation requirements established by the State Board of Education or another accrediting association recognized by the State Board. Meet any other eligibility criteria set by the State Board of Education. Testing. Participating school, participating service provider shall provide for each participating student to annually take an assessment approved by the State Board of Education. Wow, told you that was boring. But it's very important, very important to the conversation, okay? Let's start with the funding. Under the state public schools, the state provides right now $7,413 per student. So basically public schools, the funding they get from the state is that amount per student of their enrollment, okay? So what this account program is going to do, it's saying that basically they're going to allow the parent, if they choose to go in this program and opt to go in this program and not do public school, they're going to allow the parent 90% of that. So based on what it is right now, that would allow the parent in this program to apply to education for their child $6,672. Now, that's 10% less than what is per student at public schools. Now, to couple that, the ADE, the Arkansas Department of Education, will withhold 5% of that amount for administrative costs. So that brings it down to $6,338.40 for their child, for each child. Okay? Question on that, I'm going to leave it to you guys. Is that fair? Is that fair if you're providing public schools with $7,413 and you tell a parent, okay, if you don't want to go to public schools, we'll establish this account where you can apply it to other education avenues, but it's going to be 10% less than what we allow for your child at a public school. Honestly, I don't get that. I don't get that. Why is it 10% less? Why is it 10% less? Now, they also want to say that the ADE will get 5% of that as an administrative cost to the program. Well, I think the ADE should absorb that in their budget. I mean, they have administrative costs for all these other programs. If you're taking administrative costs away from what it takes for each child that's public school, okay, you're taking that cost away, and so they're saving there, but why not apply it to how this program goes instead of charging the parent, the taxpayer who's already paid these taxes for this 5% more? It just doesn't make sense. So no, I'm not big on that. I don't think I think it should be 100% funding. Okay. Now let's think about that, how that applies to tuition at a private school. So if a parent wants to say, okay, I'm out of public school, I want to try to go to a private school, and they can apply this funding to the monthly tuition at a private school. Now, most private schools, number one, have more than tuition. They have building fund, mandatory building fund contributions, other contributions that are mandatory. But then their tuition is generally, you can, they encourage you to pay, all up in 1 year or twice a year, but you can make monthly tuition payments. Now, for most private schools, $6,672, which is really $6,338 after the administrative costs, doesn't cover the tuition for the, I'm going to say basically all private schools. And so the parent is going to have to make up the difference in that, okay? And so when people think that money is going to take care of all the tuition at private schools, it just doesn't. It just doesn't. A lot of private schools are twice that in annual tuition. So to say that money will just poof go, that's going to take care of it and that's not going to cost the parent anything else to go to private school, that's just not true. It's not just going to be true. It would help a lot of parents in that avenue, and that's if those private schools want to participate. Now, there are rules that go along with this program, and the State Board of Education is going to make those rules. The legislation in this bill has already stated some, but what's really clear in the language is the State Board of Education makes the rules and can create more rules on this. So right now, let's look at the reality. Well, first let's talk about the State Board of Education and who's going to be in charge of this, okay? The State Board of Education, the board members are not elected. They're not like public school district school board members. They're not elected. They're appointed by the governor. Right now, you have, I'm going to try to pronounce some of these names, Quita Newton. Oh, and by the way, these terms on the school board, are you ready for this? 7 years. 7 years. That's longer than a U.S. senator. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Whole nother subject there, though. Quita Newton, she comes off this year in June of this year, so Governor Sanders can appoint a new member there. Sarah Moore doesn't come off till 2025. Randy Henderson doesn't come off till 2028. Fitzhill, Dr. Fitzhill, well-known guy, he comes off this July. Kathy McFairdridge doesn't come off till 2025. Lisa Hunter doesn't come off until 2029. Steve Sutton does not come off until 2027. Jeff Wood does not come off until 2029. Adrian Woods does not come off until 2026. So right now, at the end of this year, Sarah Sanders could appoint 2 new members of the board, but you can see how many are going to be on there for a long time, regardless of what Governor Sanders wants to do, and conceivably past her time as governor in Arkansas, depending on what her political aspirations are. But one thing we do know, especially with former Governor Asa Hutchinson, who was anything but a conservative Republican, we do know that most of these folks really lean left or are very left in their approach to things. And so that's a problem. That's a problem for this, because keep in mind, these are the folks that are going to be making the rules on it. Because what the legislators have established in there so far, okay, that's what they established. Going forward, the state school board can create new rules and add to criteria to be in this program. And if they voted in, that's just the way it is. Nobody's going to be able to stop it. So the rules that go along with that program are created by the State Board of Education. I don't like that. Right now, to give you an example of why that I don't think school boards would necessarily have any incentive to join this program, is right now private schools don't have any requirements under the state, and they shouldn't. That's the whole reason Think about why private schools even came to be, so that they could get out of under government control in education. That's the reason they started, so that they wouldn't be under the government's thumb when it comes to education. Right now, they basically have no requirements. They have no requirements for accreditation, none for licensing. Public schools teachers have to be licensed through the state of Arkansas and the Arkansas Department of Education. Private schools, they don't. No rules on registration, no certification required, no rules on curriculum, nothing on textbooks or testing. Yet, private schools clearly, overwhelmingly are successful and outperform public schools. That's just a fact. So right now they don't operate under anything like that. Okay? If a private school were to say, okay, yeah, we'll participate in this, we'll allow students to come to our school that are in this educational freedom account program, and we'll go back under state control on a lot of things. So if private schools want to do this, they're going to have to do things like, instead of monthly funding, they're going to have to set quarterly payments. They're going to have to get surety bonds. They're going to have to comply with state procurement laws and procedures. That's a big one. Meet accreditation requirements. Okay, they don't have to do that now, yet they're extremely successful. They got to do that by the state board or by organizations recognized by the state board. They have to, going forward, accept any rules and criteria set forth by the board. Going forward, if the State Board of Education says, hey, we're going to add new rules to this program, well, the private schools will have to adhere to those. Student testing approved by the board. Right now, they're not required to do any of that. So why would they go under that? That's the big thing. These private schools set themselves up to provide private education. The reason was to get out from under government control of education. Why would they agree to go back or go to be under control? Why would they agree to go, okay, we'll let the State Board of Education adopt new rules, and when they do it, we'll abide with them? Why would they do that for this program when they're already successful and most of them are full up? Most of them are full up. There's generally a screening process. There's a process to get in there. I just don't see any incentive to do that. And look at it this way. You're a private school. Right now you're rocking along, okay? And there's several, I'll just name a few. Shiloh Christian up northwest Arkansas, here in central Arkansas, Pulaski Academy, Little Rock Christian, Catholic High, the Catholic schools. All do very well. Conway Christian here in Conway. All do very well. All have high scores. When you look at the ACTs and scores, they just smoke public schools. Okay? All do very well. All successful. Basically, are all pretty much full up. They're not out there begging for students. So why the incentive for them to participate in this? Because the reality is they would have to invest in expansion. Okay? They would have to invest in expansion. Because you think about the number of kids in public school, and if, let's just say 10% of all students in public school, their parents said, I want to go to private school. And so they go to the private school and say, hey, we've got this funding, it's going to pay half. I'm going to make up the difference, but you got to abide by these state guidelines. You got to abide by the government rules, which you don't have to do now. Why would they do that? Because the reality is, to accept those students, to have room for those students, they're going to have to expand their schools. They're going to have new construction, new buildings, new staffing, hire more staff, more teachers, maintenance crews. There's insurance costs. There's a whole ton of stuff that's going to go into that. So why would they want to make that investment, take on that debt to go back under somewhat state control and then roll the dice that the state board's not going to add any more rules? Adding more rules to them. Why would they do that? There's no reason to. You know, they're taking a risk of losing their independence. They're going to lose part of their independence and take the risk of losing more independence by doing this. Why would they go to the trouble to take on debt, to make that investment, to expand, just to go back under government control? Does not make any sense whatsoever. The reality is the LEARNS bill does not give any incentive for public schools to take these students off this program or to expand. Will it cause new private schools to form? I don't know. I honestly, I don't think so. If you look at the cost, and that you're going to have to be under the thumb of the state, that's going to be hard to get investors to go in that. Now, could it? Yeah, I guess conceivably it could. But getting the staffing to do it is going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. I'll give you an example. Cabot School District, they're pretty much the only show. Okay, what people originally thought with this, if the plan was going to be designed the way everybody kind of thought it would, then yeah, you could see entrepreneurship in private schools, like in the area like Cabot, somebody starting a private school. But with the clear lack of funding and what it takes per student to do a private school, on this, parents having to make the difference up, and then with what rules that are under the state now, and then you not knowing what new rules will be added down the road, how are you going to get investors to invest in it? Because investors are looking for profit, okay? They're looking for profit. So how are you going to get them involved in that? So I don't think it spurs any entrepreneurship in creating new private schools. Let me tell you something interesting, and I want all the people on the left that are screaming, all the teachers that are screaming it's going to ruin public schools, all the superintendent school board members saying, oh my God, this is going to cause a mass exodus from public schools. It's going to ruin a public education. It's going to defund public education. They're just going to cherry pick people, and the poor people are going to suffer, and blah, 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 blah. Here's the reality. Representative Carlton Wing is on the House Education Committee. In the interview I had with him and Dave Ellswick had with him on the Dave Ellswick show, we were talking to him about this, and here's the reality of what he said. Based on where all these programs, similar programs, have been in place, overall, only 3% of students have left public schools. Only 3%. So when they try to portray the false narratives that there's going to be a mass exodus from public schools and this will defund public schools and take away the money, and you have these teachers up there testifying in committee saying it's going to kill rural schools and rural schools no longer exist and it's going to harm teachers and everything, that's just not true. That's just not true. It's a false narrative, but we all know how the left loves to portray false narratives. What I can't understand is why so many teachers, so-called educated people, right? These are the people teaching our students, and they're screaming about this, and you're going, well, one, you're stupid and you shouldn't be teaching our students, or two, you know the truth and you just don't want to put it out there. Superintendents and school board members, come on, guys. you see this isn't going to cause any problems with the public school as far as losing funding or losing students. What they're concerned about, they tell you what they're concerned about, is when a student leaves, they just lost $7,413. But to portray it like they're going to have this mass exodus, no. Of course, by the same token, if you lose a few students, well, your cost just went down, right? Your cost just went down. But we got to pay those superintendents, right? Those $250,000 to $300,000 contracts, got to do that. So we're worried to death we won't have funding to pay those superintendents. So again, will it encourage private schools to go along with this program or to new private schools to open? I just don't see it. I just don't see it at all. Now, homeschooling is the big winner here, because this will apply to homeschooling too. So those people who have been homeschooling, they can get on this program, and now they're going to get $6,338.40 per their child that they homeschool. So I could see this incentivizing some people who haven't homeschooled to start homeschooling. Okay, I can see where that would happen. I can see some incentive for homeschool, but a mass exodus to homeschool, that's just not the reality. Listen, if you look at people's lives and their work schedules, and usually both parents work and everything, even if they wanted to homeschool, are they capable of doing it? Are they capable of doing it? And the answer is the majority is no. So if you think there's going to be a max exodus from public schools so they can homeschool, not going to happen. Not going to happen. Will there be increase in homeschool? Sure, I hope so. I encourage people to homeschool. So that homeschool to me sees that there's going to be a big winner out of this as far as the educational account. I'm going to see it as homeschools. Now, whether this inspire micro schools to pop up and entrepreneurship in micro schools to start up and create, yeah, I think it will. But I think that's going to be the subject of another show and topic. What I wanted to cover today was the Educational Freedom Account program. And, I'll tell you the truth, I think it falls short. on that end, because when we talk about giving parents universal school choice, when we talk about those parents in the North Little Rock School District that are stuck in a just miserable school, a hellhole, basically, or you talk about others where, like Cabot or my town of Conway, where 54% of the students aren't reading at grade level and the letter grades aren't that great. Does it really give them choice? No, it doesn't. Because what this program does is it's the funding. The funding is fair because, in a sense, that it's close to what they give for each public school, but the 10% less, that's just not fair. And the 5%, but it really doesn't give them choice, because what private schools are going to expand and do that. So if you live in Conway and you're thinking, great, this allows me to get my kid in Conway Christian School like I've always wanted to do. Well, first you got to get Conway Christian School to go along with it. I don't see it. So to say this gives parents universal school choice and provides them a pathway to private schools and everything, I just don't see it. I just don't see it at all. I think we could have done better on it. I think this does not go far enough. I think when you start trying to put those private schools under state mandates and control, they're just going to run from it. If you didn't have that, if you just said, hey, if you just told parents, hey, here's your account money, you signed up for it, so you're out of public school, you can go You can go and apply this how you want to your kid's education, and there are no stipulations to the vendor who's providing you that education, then I think it would be a big one. I think private schools would be on board with maybe expanding and taking on these extra students. And but the way it's written, just not going to be the case. So to say that parents have this universal open school choice, just not true. Just not true. Like I say, this part of it to me just really falls short. Now, that's not to say this whole bill is bad, because there are some really, really good things in this bill. I mean, some outstanding things in this bill. And while this end of it falls short, there are so many parts that really just hit home runs, in my opinion. But we're going to take the bill piece by piece by piece. And like I say, this is just the first that we're going to go over as far as this counts. I'm going to get, we had a little snafu with some technology. Yesterday we were going to have them on, but I'm going to get Moms for Liberty, Karen Maynard, Wendy Potter, and Rebecca Davis on to discuss this portion of the bill. We're going to get them back on and get their feelings on it, not just my feelings, but their feelings. And then we're going to take the bill piece by piece in some other shows. But I wanted to start with this one because this is the one everybody's talking about. This part of it's the one everybody's talking about. Now, like I say, there's some really cool stuff in this bill that I still don't understand why liberals aren't on board with. Okay, I mean, massive teacher raises, school security, literacy stuff, some things that limit the board on how they can pay their superintendent these massive salaries. So some really good stuff. But I want to start with that today. So yeah, guys, I hope this was informative for you. I hope it gave you some food for thought. And I appreciate you guys so much. I hope y'all have a great day.